Salutations, Dr. Schilds. I wanted to say thank you very much for the conversation we had a few days ago. It was about an hour long. That was something very unique for me, groundbreaking for me. So thank you very much. I learned a lot, and just to exchange information with you was really exciting for me. Probably got a little too excited when we were talking, actually. So what I wanted to do, as opposed to sending you sketches, is actually I just showed you a few on the video here, and you'll see them again at the end of the video. But I'll go over some of these pictures, opposed to sending them to you, and I'll try to elaborate on what we already discussed without repeating things. That way it saves time on the video and everything else, and so many things it stops me from repeating to you that will be boring to you. So I'll kind of stick to the things that we had discussed that I have illustrations of, but especially things as pertaining to the propulsion systems and to the technology in that way for 2 different ships I've been on. So maybe you'll find that interesting. We discussed it, but you get to see the illustration, and I'll be able to speak a little bit on it. Okay, the first up is this one. You had asked if I had any childhood playmates. This is the individual sounded like Yandar in my mind, but Xandar. And I remember I told you how he showed up, and he was having this hat on and those kitty cats right there you can see. And that's just, I'd seen him on a few occasions. He was seen by other people, and he didn't appear to be quite even as insectoid as this. He appeared to be more of a Caucasian gentleman to me. But, you know, now that I see it, what was he doing optically to change things in my eyes, in my consciousness? So anyway, that is the childhood playmate right there. This goes into the next thing I had discussed with you, which is the acid rain experience, all right? The only thing different, because Christine did all these sketches for me. The thing that the ships you see up there didn't quite look like that. That's one ship that I saw that was on my adult onset experiences. So it looked a little different. The ships out there were a little bigger than that, and they actually were just silver discs, they seemed like to me. Anyway, you can see they're sucking up the air into the bottom there and emitting a light down. And floating on the side is Xandar there, in the uniform that he had on. And once again, this is, like I mentioned before, I knew this was the same individual I had played with, but he seemed much different here. Much more like a scientist, much more official. So this is that experience. Now, what I'm bringing this up is because in the back of this room was an engine. There was another room in the back of this this control room, whatever this was, that had an engine in it, and it was huge. And I call this the quasi-crystal engine because I believe that's what it is. And this here is just one sketch of it when it's actually not in operation. And I want to describe the sizes to you, sir. It was, these crystals were about, I'd say, 3 feet wide and about 9 feet tall, almost a basketball goal height. They're about that big, and something very important, I think. I try to explain this, and all the crystals I've seen on board these craft or in their devices all have a type of a bioluminescence or chemical luminescence in them that is glowing. That's the only thing she didn't get on here. But yeah, so that, and you know, I think that takes us into a little bit of what you were describing to me as opposed to dipole light, quadrupole light. I had not heard of that, and that's actually brilliant. So thank you for that information and how you said that certain contactees you believe can perceive that. But I'm also beginning to wonder if that has something to do with this chemical or bioluminescence that I see inside of here. Now, when this device, when it's actually activated, it started producing a very deep bass hum. And these things, okay, first of all, there appeared to be around these crystals, sorry I forgot to mention this, around these crystals appeared to be almost copper wire, copper of some type of wiring. When these things start spinning, when it's activated, and they start spinning so fast that I can't see the crystals almost. And what I'm pretty sure they're using here, and what I'm getting from Xandar in this situation, this is another illustration she did for me here, with him standing next to it. The only difference is they're floating next to it, but the difference is on this is that there were actually no windows in that, so I don't show that sketch a lot. There are no windows on that craft. Most of the craft I've been on, they're not windows because they're living organisms. Anyway, this is when it's in activation. Like I said, it spins. It's actually disappearing, the crystals are, but it's producing this deep basal hum. What I've actually seen, like the doggone elder swinging a bull roar on a hill that sounds similar to this. Very deep bass. Now Xandar, in my mind, is telling me that that engine is not just capable of powering small planetoids, it can also heal human flesh. And that really sent me, for one, on trying to figure out what exactly part of this is creating a healing effect for human flesh. Now, what I think is going on here is I believe this is vacuum state engineering, is what I think it is. I believe we've got here actually magnetic generators of some type. I believe this is the containment field using amorphous metals. And I had described to you how there's a compound that's on the craft, that a 4-stage compound that is amorphous metals for minerals that are mined on planets that are devoid of Van Allen belts and maybe atmospheres sometimes, and how they have that durability, also combined with a type of quasi-crystals, and also fungi, and then DNA from the crew. So this is taken in the amorphous metals part, I believe, that they're using to actually generate the Kashmir effect. And what I believe is this thing is producing is actual polyton condensates, which is similar to the Bose-Einstein condensates that you think are in the middle of black holes. I think it's a similar type of an energy that they're generating because they're exciting the proton so much and doing something. And I believe that this chemical luminescence, bioluminescence, has something to do with it. So anyway, that's just one engine I wanted to show you. And like I said, this thing was very large and it produced that basal hum, and they said it would heal human flesh. So that was one of those experiences that I very well could not forget and crossed over my normal life. Now going forward, when I was 18, because my experiences kind of stopped between the ages of 12 to about 17. But I'm 17 and I wake up on board this craft. And on board this craft is the engine I had described to you during our conversation. I call this the gyrospheric engine. Now I was standing down here, okay? You can see here is that looks like, it looks like a fullerene, a buckyball. And inside it was organic, and inside it's glowing full of this brilliant deep golden light. And around this are these things that are moving. They look like Saturn rings to me. Like I told you on the phone, this reminded me somewhat. Years later, I see the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, and I was wondering how in the world could they possibly have something that even looked somewhat similar. Somebody knew something. Anyway, this was actually producing this light, and then it's generating a light. This golden light that's polarized and going up. And what actually, this is a very large structure. It was like being in a large building, like the Empire State Building or something. These are actually decks. Okay, so on this deck up here, I could see what looked like transparent people touching the living light from the rail. And the beings are putting in my mind, they're calling this the living light, the AGLE, angelic golden liquid energy. And they're implying to me that somehow they're polarizing orgone energy from water, I believe, and then actually this polarized beam is going up here. If you can see this, sir, that is a huge black box. And information I was getting, as the other black boxes I've seen on these craft, is this is an inertial damper that contains some type of a life energy, I think prana, orgone, that they're using to actually contains negative mass, and they're releasing that as an anti-gravity field, or gravity modification field around the skin of the craft. So that's what I believe that they're doing with these boxes. I've heard some contactees telling me, oh, there's souls in them. They're trapping souls in there. I don't go that far with it. I think there's more of a scientific explanation to this when dealing with gravity modification and orgone energy. So anyway, that's this engine. I was there physically. This engine made me feel sick, especially the closer to it I was, the more sick I was on the craft. When I got to the other level, I wasn't quite as sick. So anyway, there was a group of people up there that were also touching the living light. And again, as I mentioned before, as they told me, this compound I just spoke of is grown on micro wormholes or wormholes in space. And therefore, the engine itself is also temporally displaced in some way. So I think that's very interesting when dealing with that. And that's why when someone like Susan I saw up there, or Bill Spicer, touching the living light, they say it turns into Akashic records, access to the Akashic Records, kind of similar to what Edgar Mitchell said in the barbecue effect thing we talked about. Anyway, next experience. I'm trying to hurry here so we don't run out of time. This is the craft that I saw on my first adult onset experience. I told you it had looked kind of Pleiadian. It had what I thought were these perhaps gravity modification things down here, which I think they are not now. We'll talk about that later. And also had a door right here that I was levitated into by a blue beam. But on top of this craft, most importantly I think, is what is called the directional emitter. And it was a light that was going around. Every time it came towards me, it was woo, 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 like it was tuning me in. A deep bass sound again, not unlike that engine had. The same type of a basal hum. So anyway, that's this craft that takes us into these metals and into the compound I described. And this is what I saw this craft doing that I tried to tell you on the floor, on the phone. Suddenly I'm outside of my car, standing out here with my ex-girlfriend, and we're looking at this craft, and before another one comes up, and I see this thing start morphing. It starts turning like a weird gray, like mist around it, and then it starts doing this. It goes to this, then to this, and then you can see the three balls, spherical balls with the staglamites on them, and then it turns into this, sir. And it rocked me pretty much as far as perceptually goes, because this thing looked like a molecule to me. It's got the balls, the spherical balls with the staglamites coming off. Each one was a different color. It was emitting a bioluminescence from the inside. Each one of them was lighting one at a time. It looked like a molecule moving in the air to me to a certain degree. And later on I found... yes, a tripyramidal Merkabah is what he called that. That is the closest thing I've been able to I've seen to describing what this craft I saw and what I saw it doing. So this took me all into the things when we come into the quasi-crystal technology, photonic quasi-crystals that science is discovering now, coupled with a few other things. I mean, really amorphous metals. It kind of takes us to a whole nother level with that, I believe. Now the second part is to like, what was it actually being on board a craft that is capable of doing that on the outside? When I said I was drawn into a room, make sure I got this the right state, right way, right here. This was the first room in that small door you saw underneath that craft. Excuse me, I was drawn into. This was the room there, and I mentioned that this almost seemed to be like a cargo bay. It was very large. It was very large as that craft itself seemed to be to me from the outside, which seemed to be about 150 feet maybe in diameter. This is that size inside of here, it seemed like to me. Inside of there is this blue beam with like these cables going into the wall, organic walls, and oh, I get this upside down. No, that's right, sorry. And then, okay, into these organic walls. And these organic walls on this craft in each room seemed to be almost like they were a type of a fungus, a mushroom, you know, but it had a harder consistency than that. You know, this is before they started flooding me with information about the compound and things like that. So anyway, this, and something interesting about this black box, there's another one. This to me appeared to be carbon tubes going into this black box, and this black box seemed to be sitting at what, about like a 90-degree angle on the wall up there coming up. And every time when I got near it and I looked up at it, first of all, it's very big. When I start looking up at it, and the closer I get to it, I start suffering from this temporal aphasia, this sickness that I described to you earlier, that is they're saying because the inside and outside of the ship are not in the same dimension. So I call this the anti-gravity room. I don't know that's for sure what it was, but this here, as I get close to this, trying to look at this, I'm getting information. It's saying plutonium, uranium, magnesium, and copper with water, activated with water. When I tried to look that up, it takes us into something called Pu3, which is a type of plutonium that is actually gray colored and gets activated by water, has something to do with water. I'm wondering, so that led me to think, okay, if this isn't the engine room, and it's just the light that brought me in was blue, does this have something to do with a disinfectant agent before you're taken on board one of these craft? I looked into that because there was a theory that melanin dominant people don't have to go through a disinfectant type of deal when they go on board a craft. I don't think that's true, but those were reported to be purple lights. What took me on board was blue. This was blue, so I thought maybe it was connected. Once again, I believe this is an inertial damper that they're using to probably from water draw orgone energy, and then using that with negative mass and releasing that around the skin of the ship. So once again, I don't know for sure if this was an engine room. I just call it anti-gravity room. And something I'll throw in there real quick, sir. I believe there could be another craft grown in here. Since it's temporally displaced, like a wormhole itself, I believe a smaller craft could be grown in this cargo bay. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's not what it's for. Anyway, food for thought if nothing else. On board this craft, this is the next room I was in. Looked like this. I mentioned this to you. I might use this for a background here. These windows, these almost garage type looking windows. You get close to those, whoop, you're sucked into one. And one on the side here, the ones on the side were different. They almost look like holes. And when I went through one of those, it was like almost going through a birth canal or something down to the lower parts of the ship. And this is another room here. When you go in one of those zooms, you're in one of those. These are actually the eggs I had mentioned to you, the glass eggs, and the lights that are inside. All right, and these beings on the side, we'll talk about those another time. Those are related to this being named Mana, a larger being that approached me physically. But these guys were kind of phased out as to where Mana, a larger being, was not. But anyway, they all seem to be paying attention to these eggs, as was I. And these eggs have these lights in them with these different configurations of plasmas. Like I mentioned, most of them seem to be kind of circular or spherical to me. And at first, sir, I thought these were power sources, is what I thought they were. Until I got so sick in another room that two of these lights emerged out of the egg and one attached to the left side of my head and the other one to my ribs. And it seemed to me like they were changing my time field or my energy field. I started suffering from less temporal aphasia. I was about to pass out. So the whole experience would have been over. So anyway, that's this room here. The glass eggs I had spoken of. Once again, the texture of the walls. That kind of might connect a little bit to what you were saying Susie Hansen had went through. Maybe there's similarities there, I don't know. But these were beings, and there was a lot of mist. There's a mist in every room on board this craft that makes it hard to breathe. It smelled like ammonia, or maybe even more like just Windex to me. But in this room, it was very thick too, so that made it hard to breathe. But I noticed inside the eggs, the mist was like double as thick. So thick you couldn't see the lights too clearly through there. So that's one more part of that. Now, I've been on another craft. I've been on actually two other crafts. We talk about that in other videos. One of them I think will interest you because I think the bridge of it was actually constructed of Makos. And I think it takes us a little into really are there micro wormholes and how small can they get and how hard would it be to stabilize them inside a room. These were unstable. They kept opening and closing. And I actually saw a being jump in front of me and jump into one of these and jump out. And they're telepathically telling me they're like fish out of water in our dimension due to the density. So anyway, just a couple of things I wanted to hit. We're supposed to talk on Tuesday. You wanted to speak again. I'll be thrilled. This will give you a chance to maybe formulate any questions you had concerning these things, and we can go forward from there. And I'll be happy to share the others' experiences with you. If you enjoy this format of me relaying the information, I can probably do another one. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you for talking to me. That's the whole reason I stepped forward, is I wanted to talk to real scientists, because this is the only foundation I have to support these crazy things that have happened to me my whole life. Thank you very much, sir. God bless.